talking. I'll tell you that much.
Well, if we wait, then somehow I'll get off tangent and everybody will yell at me. So might as well start early. All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal E-Mac coming to you for a Sunday NFL live before lock. We are the flagship show. We are the only show for NFL today. For those of you looking for NBA, I believe Josh Eagleman did a DFS strategy show this morning. That will be something going forward on Sundays that you will get in addition to NBA live before lock once NFL winds down. But in the meantime, we know that NFL is still king. 2-game slate today. That means 2 showdowns as well as the classic format. I'm playing on all of the sites because that's just what I have to do, Matt. I have head-to-heads out there for DraftKings, for the classic 2-gamer, as well as for each showdown slate. I tell you, team free money was in effect yesterday. I went 1-26 on the early showdown slate in my head-to-heads, and then I swept the night game and the Saturday slate. I won 90%. So, hey, I'm still in the red. It's awesome. But we just like to give back to the community, you know, helping those less unfortunate than we are. All righty. So, key topics today, the weather. The weather in Philadelphia. Oh my God, there's going to be 5 to 7 inches of snow, maybe. It's not snowing right now. True, but it is raining. I actually finally found on Twitter a decent weather report. I was poking around. You would be shocked at how many different sites have dead, not working live street cams in Philadelphia. That's a trick you use for MLB to try to figure out what the weather is for the other locations. Rarely do we use this for football, but I wanted to see if it was snowing yet. It's not. However, temperatures are dropping. They expect the icy / light rain to turn to snow sometime between 3 and 4 o'clock today, and then it could proceed through 7 o'clock. So that's in the game window there. They say it may come down in a hurry. We don't know what's going to happen for sure. We have seen those, almost a month ago now, there was those 2 snow games, one of which where it was like, oh, this isn't going to snow. I think it was in Buffalo, and then all of a sudden it was dumping in that game. So we'll have to see. It's right around the edge. Temperatures are going to be between 30 and 34. We won't know until it happens. But I wanted to cover that one there. Unless, of course, we have boots on the ground there, which we would like to hear about. In Buffalo, it is going to be frigid. Like even colder than your freezer. It's going to be colder than your ice box. It is a literal ice box. Temperatures around 15 degrees. A 4 to 8 mile an hour breeze that is going to bring the feels like temperature to single digits in Buffalo. So it is going to be cold, 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 cold. That is all factored into the projections, right? We're still playing a game with an oddly shaped ball that bounces in funny ways regardless of the weather. So are you prepared for pure chaos today, Matt?
Always, especially when I'm doing a show with you, already prepared for the chaos. So the NFL is just secondary chaos. Yeah, weather doesn't look great in either spot. Man, it's going to be cold in Buffalo. It's going to be really cold, like all in the north, in the northeast, and like the Midwest. The next, like starting today until the next week or so, and the feels like temperature is really, really cold. So I don't know if that changes my strategy just because both games are dealing with it. We've only got 2 games. That game still has Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So, yeah, you have it in your mind, but I'm just not sure there's that much you can do with it personally.
All right, so let's kind of, this is going to be a little bit more of a free-flowing show because we have, it's hard, the contest won't as big as we were hoping on some of the sites. We're still going to kind of treat it as quarterbacks by position, but we'll also hit on the in particular that later showdown slate. But looking at the Eagles game or the Eagles side of this first, they're the home team, right? They are geared up for this. It's not Philadelphia, Baltimore, etc. Not warm weather cities, but they're not ice boxes either. But there is a lot of cold weather in those cities. So I'm not, and both those teams are playing outside or play outside. So I'm not as worried about how their players are going to go. With the Philadelphia game, it gets to be a little bit concerning. If we do see snow and it is somewhat impairing vision or downfield vision, we could get more of a running game. We already know Philly doesn't need any excuses to run the ball. And Hertz looks on a point per dollar basis, looks a little bit better than Jackson and a little bit better than Allen, because we're counting on the tush push here, right? We also have Saquon Barkley, who had an amazing season for running back, one of the top 5 of all time, one would argue, and he is going to be a large part of this. I think pairing those guys together is perfectly fine if you're, hoping for the approach that, one, they're already their main scorers anyway, and two, leaning into the weather narrative here, or actuality, I guess. It's not really a narrative. What do you think about Lamar and kind of lumping him in with Saquon? Because we've already seen the hesitation to have him pass anyway. Not that he's bad, but Philly just
You mean Hurts and Saquon?
Hurts and Saquon, because Philly just pulls out enough to win, the Milton Berle style. So
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem playing Hurts and Saquon. I do think that DraftKings is almost like teasing you to play Hurts over Lamar and Josh Allen. Like, Hurts is a very good fantasy quarterback. Lamar and Josh Allen are elite fantasy quarterbacks. Now, maybe the weather's a little bit worse in Baltimore, and it is a big price difference from those guys to Hurts. For me, I prefer to get up to specifically Josh Allen, but I think Hurts is in play because we know he's got touchdown equity, he's got upside, and he's cheaper than the top 2. So I don't think he's out of play. I just prefer to spend up. And even with price considered, I view Hurts as the 3rd best option.
okay, so that means option number 4 is his counterpart, Matt Stafford.
Yeah, no thanks.
Mr. Dome, Mr. Warm Weather himself, though I was reading Twitter this morning looking for weather, and I didn't. Was on Twitter. He had his best game of the year was a game against the Green Bay Packers back when he was with Detroit. He threw some ungodly number of yards, like 400 plus yards, when the temperature was around freezing. 1 game sample size, but this is a much older Matt Stafford. One, he's not going to shrink in the face of a blitz, but 2, he doesn't go down the field as much as he used to. He has plenty of short range options. Higbee's back. I thought he died in that last game, but he's not even on the injury report. Had that chest injury after missing most of the season. I think it was some torn knee ligaments. You got obviously Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, who can't seem to get open against anybody at this point, but still, he is, if we're looking for short yardage specialists and a good pair of hands, he is a guy to look at here. It feels like the passing attack here for the Rams actually shouldn't be overly impacted by the weather. Is that sort of your read on it as well? Because they don't target downfield all that often.
Yeah, kind of, but I still don't really like Stafford here. He's got obviously no rushing upside, really tough matchup against Philly. So I don't mind the pass catchers, specifically, obviously, Puka, but the Rams are pretty clearly, to me, the 4th best offense on this slate, which means they'll be the lowest owned. So there's something to that. But just on paper, I think they're the clear, worst offense of the 4 today.
All right. So
in the spot they're in, let me preface that. In the spot
Sure.
they're in. Like, I think that their offense is probably comparable to Philly's, when you all things considered, but they're going to Philly facing a better defense than Philly's, at home facing a good but not great Rams defense in my mind. So that's where the separation is to me.
All right. Lee Madison, welcome to joining the Stokastic YouTube chat there. Have fun and enjoy. I see AJ Dub is in there, says EMAC, a leader of men. One can only hope. Kick is good is around. Jake DeWitt's here. We've got a lot of the regulars checking in. Almost 1,100, 1,200 people here. Hit that like button. Let's see if we can get us up to 200 here. That would be a fun milestone to reach today. Let's turn our attention to that night game. We've got the 2 leading candidates for MVP. The reigning MVP is, of course, Lamar Jackson. This year, he became the first quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards, as well as 900 yards rushing in the same season. He had a personal high 45 combined touchdowns. I believe he threw touchdowns to 11 different players, so doesn't necessarily play favorites. Well, aside from Flowers, who is out, or all but out today. He hasn't practiced in 2 weeks and he's doubtful. So we'll assume he's not playing. On the other side, you've got Josh Allen, who is the odds-on favorite ahead of Jackson for the MVP. What did Allen do this year? Well, he became the first quarterback ever to throw for 3 touchdowns and run for 3 touchdowns in the same game. He completed his 5th consecutive season of at least 40 combined touchdowns. Oh, and he had a game where he passed for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and then caught a tipped ball from himself, which counted as a touchdown pass as well. So just when you thought that nobody could top Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen says, damn it, this is my turn to get the hardware. These are our top 2 options. We know that they have strong running games themselves. They have good running backs next to them, and they have a decent collection of pass catchers, meaning there's not one over favorite here. So there are lots of options, and Allen, excluding the touchdown he threw to himself, he threw touchdowns to 12 different receivers. What do you like with these guys? Because they're consolidating everything for their DFS prospects for each of their respective teams.
Yeah, as far as Allen and Lamar go, I mean, what's not to like about these guys? The 2 best fantasy quarterbacks by, I know Jaden Daniels is creeping up there, man. He was special last night, but still, for my money, Lamar and Josh Allen, I mean, you can't go wrong with either of them. I do think that Baltimore has a stronger, they obviously have Derrick Henry, not to diminish James Cook because he's awesome, but he's not Derrick Henry. So cold temperatures like this, not going to be surprised to see Baltimore give Henry a ton of touches here, where I think Buffalo is more likely to keep it in Josh Allen's hands just because they don't have Derrick Henry. So again, kind of picking at the margins here, but I prefer Josh Allen. I like Henry a lot here. We'll get to running back. I prefer Josh Allen to Lamar. I just think he's asked to do more today in this offense than Lamar is. But again, you're picking at straws here because both of them are, again, not just the 2 best quarterbacks for fantasy in all of football.
Yeah, Josh Allen has had less than 20 fantasy points once in the last 12 games. 7 of these, he's had 24 or more fantasy points. He also had 44.28 fantasy points against Detroit or in Detroit. And then he had 54.88 against the Rams. So he has just put up some monster numbers. Turning our attention to the running backs, we'll stick in this game for just a second here. You've got James Cook, who tied Derrick Henry with 16 rushing touchdowns this season. That was the league lead. They each had 2 receiving touchdowns. You had these teams square off all the way back in week 4, which is like a lifetime ago in NFL terms. But Henry took the first offensive snap for an 87-yard touchdown in that game. He put 199 yards on the Bills. He has 163 or more combined yards in each of his last 4 games. That's pretty awesome, but he doesn't get a ton of work in the passing game, even though he had those 2 touchdowns. On the other side, rounding out Cook, he also hasn't been getting a lot of work in the passing game. How many targets do you think Cook has had over his last 3 games?
Not many, because I know that in terms of, I think he only ran 6 routes last game. I know that he only ran 6 routes last game. Ty Johnson's become like their pass catching back.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting and terrifying at the same time. But I call that out because most of us think of James Cook as kind of a combo back. That's just, can he? Yes, sure. It just hasn't happened. Ray Davis, we don't have the inactive yet for tonight game. Unlikely to play. He was in the concussion protocol, and I think he's only on step 2 or step 3 of the 4 or 5 steps, so he's likely to be out. So you got NFL nomad Ty Johnson backing up James Cook there, but that is surprising that Cook only hasn't had any targets in the last 3 games. In those same 3 games, Davis had 5, Ty Johnson had 6. Other key notes for Cook: the Ravens allowed 3 players to rush for more than 52 yards this year. Nick Chubb, 16 for 52. Najee Harris, 18 for 63. And then Saquon Barkley, we'll get to him in just a minute, 23 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. That was it. Nobody else got over 50 yards. That is an impressive defense there from the Ravens. They are a little bit, as Greg likes to say, fugazi when it comes to the passing attack, just because they have faced a whole host of nobodies this year. But their rushing defense is legit. And that brings us back to Travis Henry. I knew I was going to say Travis Henry at some point. I do that every time. Derrick Henry is just sublime. Second best season of his career. Anything you want, he has done this year in his age 30 season. He shares about 30% of the workload with Justice Hill, except Hill's the better pass catcher. So we have a game flow situation here that as long as they're within 10 or so points, I expect it to be Henry as the primary. If it goes below that, then I expect Hill to be the primary. So we'll have to see what happens. But what do you think of the 4 running backs in this game that are viable options?
Yeah, no, I mean, Derrick Henry, again, you kind of said it best. Like in scripts where the Ravens are winning or where his team is winning, there's no better running back to have in football. I mean, when he's running downhill, good luck trying to stop him. The Bills certainly couldn't in their first outing. Doesn't mean they won't today, but with with Lamar and Henry together, it's really hard to stop. We've seen it. I think it's a Henry game today. He's my favorite back on the slate. The Rams defense has impressed me quite a bit recently. Obviously, last week they dominated. So I just don't like that game environment as much as I like Baltimore and Buffalo. That's why I like Henry over Saquon, but they're clearly 1-2. I mean, again, kind of like the quarterbacks. You've got, two of not the two best, like the quarterbacks. Barkley's two of the top, like 3 or 4 running backs in all fantasy. So if you want to throw like Gibbs in there now, sure, but 2 of the 3 or 4 best in Barkley and Henry. After that, it's pretty easy to separate these guys by tiers. After that, it's Kyron Williams and James Cook. Depending on the game script, maybe you think Buffalo is the one winning this game. And then I like Cook a lot more because, as you mentioned, he's like Derrick Henry light in that he's not running routes, he's not catching passes. So you kind of need the game script to be in his favor also. Now, no Ray Davis does help him in those game scripts, have more upside than he normally would. But I do think that him and Kyron are clearly secondary options to Henry and Barkley here. And then you mentioned it, like if you're playing James Cook, I think that makes me like a guy like Justice Hill even more. Not only is he the better pass catcher, he's the better pass blocker. He's more used to that role. He'll be on the field if they're trailing. So if you think Buffalo like gets up big in this game, I could definitely see having some Justice Hill exposure. I mean, we know they're not afraid to give him the rock when they're trailing and have him on the field. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm playing on each of the 3 main sites. I'm playing my one cash game / main lineup out there. And 2 of the 3, I have Justice Hill as a running back there. The other one, I have Ty Johnson between Yahoo, FanDuel, and DraftKings, just because looking for some value plays there. There's not really that many that are projectable. There's some cheap guys, and we'll talk about the Buffalo receivers in a minute, but who the hell knows which one's going to get the ball? Has similar story there in Baltimore as well. Let's see, I want to say Mo Ba said James Cook is still a good pass catching back. I would agree with you. Absolutely. Just hasn't been how the chips have fallen. Could that change this afternoon or tonight? Absolutely. It's just kind of interesting that it hasn't happened in that. But that's also like saying, well, Philly doesn't have that great of a passing offense. Well, how many times have they had to pass this year? How many times have they really been pressured throughout this season? They have one of the best defenses in the league as compared to 2 years ago when they were putting up all those points because their defense wasn't that great. But then they were still pulling their play. They were holding back in the fourth quarter of a lot of those games because they were just had such a lead. It didn't matter at that point anymore. So Philly's kind of the pendulum has swung on that one, but yeah, you good calling that out. Yeah. James Cook hasn't lost his pass catching skills. You just got a lot of people he's competing with for the ball. Barkley and Hunt, or God, now I'm all over the place. Barkley and Hurts, of course, will be competing for red zone touches between each other. 5 and out, it's probably Barkley. 5 and in, it's going to be the tush push or the brotherly shove. Is there anybody else you would consider on between Will Shipley or Kenny Gainwell?
Yeah, definitely you can consider Gainwell in like the large, big $25, $500K to first. Again, trying to get weird, solo ship. Guys like Gainwell certainly have a place on this slate. I don't think he's anything special, him himself, but like, especially with more people, I think going to Justice Hill than Gainwell for good reason. Um, that pivot in itself could make a lot of money for someone because it's not like Justice Hill is guaranteed to do anything. If the game script doesn't play in his favor, he's not likely to do much. Gainwell isn't likely to do much either, but like you said at the beginning, it's a game with a weird shaped ball or however you put it, and Gainwell can find the end zone. So yeah, he's got a place on this slate. I think that's the best I can say about him.
All right. And then any Bronny Rivers love at all, even trying to get weird.
I thought about putting him in my king of the end zone today on DK to get real weird. I don't know if you don't know about that promotion because
you told me about it last week. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, so you can pick up to three guys, and you split 2 million in bonus bets. So I'm trying to get real weird with it. I don't care about hitting the $5 parlay. Ultimately, did not put him in it, but that's about all I can say about him. I don't really think he has much of a role today.
So is that for this entire weekend the longest touchdown, or
they did one yesterday and they did one today.
Okay.
And last week, I know we talked about it, the Curtis Samuel or whatever. I think they got like, man, I can't remember exactly how much.
It was like 27,000 or something.
Yeah, something real nice, like something real
substantial.
Nice. Yeah, not like chump change. So I don't care about the $5 parlay. I want to hit one of these random touchdowns. So I chose a bunch in the Ravens Bills game.
Yeah, Joseph Ramirez says Jameson Williams hit yesterday and was like for $33 or something. Yeah, it's
that's why I don't want to choose those guys.
Yeah, but not too. I mean, not too shabby. These are some fun promotions there. Speaking of fun promotions here, we also have the DraftKings Pick 6. If you sign up through our link here, you can bet 5 and get 50 pick 6 credits. But even more importantly, if you click on our little link join link here, which we'll get in the chat in just a second here because I have this saved on my clipboard. But if you see that we have 11 different I don't know what the right word, site / partners that have done this deal with us. So if you go to that link there, you will see that we have an opportunity for you to get 1 month of any sports Sims Max package by signing up with any of these sites with us through our links here. If you sign up, here's the key things you need to do. 1, you got to go through our link. 2, you got to make a deposit. Follow whatever instructions are there. You'll also get their deposit bonuses or matches as they are listed on that site. So you get the same deal for the DraftKings Pick 6. And then once you've created your first wager, your first pick'em card, whatever, as soon as that settles, take a screenshot of that and forward that with your welcome email so we can verify that you came in through our link to support@stokastic.com, and we will get you 1 month of your choice of sports, the Sims Max package. Obviously, NFL winding down here. Still have today's games and then next week and the Super Bowl. But we have MLB coming up. We have NBA in full swing. We have got golf in full swing as well. And the big tournaments are coming up right around the corner here. Plus, there's also MMA. So definitely check that out. But that is the link join as well as the DraftKings Pick 6 credits. Is Cooper washed? Let's use this moment here from Chris Alber's super chat. Is Cooper washed? We'll see. It's tough to know, right? He had some good games last year. They were not with Deshaun Watson. He came over in the trade from Buffalo, and then he hurt his wrist. So that was creating some issues with him getting on the field. And then, as we mentioned, Josh Allen just isn't playing favorites. The team leader is Khalil Shakir with 100 targets. I don't have my notes page up, but I believe it was Mac Hollins is next with 57, and then it's rookie Keon Coleman with 50. And then since Cooper has joined, he had one game where they just peppered him with targets. That was when he hurt his wrist, and then he has been re-aggravated his wrist, and then he's just he's disappeared. He kind of overlaps with the same skill set essentially as Curtis Samuel. I still think that Cooper is more talented, but at this stage in their respective careers, but we'll have to see what happens here. I don't think he's washed. I just think it's a lack of opportunities. But they're also, those guys are battling. They've got Dalton Kincaid in there. They've got Dawson Knox. It's just a crowded wide receiver room there. And the turnover was huge, right? Last year, the Trent Sherfield is gone. Steph Diggs is gone. Who else left? Gabe Davis isn't there. And then Deontay Harty is not there either. He is with Baltimore at this point. I think he's still on their active roster. So Shakir was the lone holdover, but there's just a whole bunch of guys there. Are they just another guy? A jag is the new popular phrase in DFS is, or are they going to be any good? We got a couple of, savvy veterans, a young rookie, and then Shakir, who also has to battle Kincaid for those short area targets. So it just makes things really, really crowded. But it also has everybody, we'll start here, we're starting on the low end. It also has everybody with really low salaries, very palatable salaries across this entire Buffalo team. Do you have a lean on any of them here? Is it a Dawson Knox? Is it Kincaid? Is it Shakir? Or is it, lightning in a bottle again with Samuel? Do you think Cooper's washed? What do you got here for us, man?
I do think Cooper's more washed than not, but that doesn't mean I don't think he's in play here just because he's got Josh Allen as his quarterback, one scramble, long play. A lot of his targets were deep targets since he's been in Buffalo, so he's not on the field a ton, but yeah, I think he's washed, but I don't think he's out of play because of it, which is weird to say, but true. Because DFS is a funny game, like as we've talked about and mentioned immensely. So it's hard to decipher and choose between these guys. I think Shakir is the clear number one, or not the number one, but his ownership is going to be as such. And as you mentioned, like Josh Allen, doesn't really care. He'll throw to whoever. I think my favorite of the others is Keon Coleman. Big play upside. And, that's about all it is. It's really hard to separate between these guys. I love the idea of Dalton Kincaid, but man, he's burned me pretty much every week I've played him. So hard to get excited about it. I'll say that. You've got guys like Mac Hollins, I think, are in play. So it's really, really hard to choose between the Buffalo guys. I think if you're multi-entering, you just want exposure to all of them and, get Josh Allen so you have the main guy.
All right. Chat is not happy with me because I took the prompt as when you ask about a player, you use their last name, not their first name. So technically there are two Coopers, but there's only one Cup.
Good one.
Okay. All right. Is Cooper Kupp washed? No, I don't think so. He's 2.5, 3 years removed from the greatest wide receiver season of all time. He was battling with some serious injuries at this point. Still good from a short yardage, good hands standpoint, but he just can't get open. The ESPN open scores, he has a bottom 10 percentile rating, which is not good. So from that standpoint, maybe yes, maybe no. I still want to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. But yes, two Coopers, one Cup. I do not think Cup is washed, but it's hard as heck to click on his name. Why did I think of Amari Cooper first? Because I spent 3 hours writing about that game this morning for the night game.
Oh yeah, was he talking about Amari Cooper or Cooper Kupp? They're both washed, but
yeah, no, he said Cooper, and so I jumped to the thing I'd spent a bunch of time on this morning, but it was Cooper Kupp. So,
well, I mean, I feel like the blame is not on you. If you're going to ask if Cooper Kupp is washed, you say, is Kupp washed? Because normally people reference guys by their last name. That's all I'll say.
Good times. Good times. All righty. We are rolling. We are just rolling at this point. So, Puka Nacua, absolutely amazing. The next Cooper Kupp. He's kind of supplanted Cooper Kupp, obviously, at this point. Is there a wide receiver 3 we can trust? Probably not. Is there a wide receiver 3 we want to trust in weather? Not really, because you got Robinson running down the field. Probably we'll see a sighting from Whittington, but who else knows who's going to be that third or fourth wide receiver here for the Rams? They could also go with the heavy personnel now that they've got Higbee back, and they may choose to go that route because of weather and because of the Eagles' pass rush. So at that point, I still think Kupp is going to be on the field. He's in play. Do we think he gets multiple touchdowns? No, that's probably not in his bag anymore. 6 catches for 55 yards, that's definitely in play. So I think there is some value on that. And for his salary, it's not bad. But the ceiling's probably gone at this point. Anything else from the Rams? And then you want to hit on the mess in Baltimore. And what do you like with the Phillies receivers?
Yeah. As far as the Rams goes, I mean, it's Puka. I mean, Puka is a
I think he's
monster.
a priority one play.
Yeah, you talk about a dog, like he's a guy, they will do whatever they have to get the ball in his hands. Him, then Kyron, but mostly him. So tough matchup for him. And I don't think, you know, fading him on a slate like this is like the craziest thing in the world. I'm talking like, wouldn't lock him in 100% of my lineups. But if I were making one lineup, I'm playing Puka. Like, he's elite. I think they're going to be trailing. I don't love Stafford for DFS, but I certainly trust him enough to be able to find Puka a bunch here. And obviously his run after the catchability. I love Puka. I don't like anything else from the Rams, except for maybe a sprinkle of Tyler Higbee. We saw him very involved before he got hurt. Deep tight end slate, but he's not going to be owned as much as the other guys. So I like Higbee a lot, or not a lot. I like Higbee. I like Puka a ton. Um, from the Eagles, I just kind of think Jalen Hurts sucks. So the Rams defense has gotten a lot better. I know that, coach speak on AJ Brown, where he's whining about not getting the ball. I mean, when isn't there coach speak about AJ Brown and him whining about not getting the ball? So he's in play because he's AJ Brown and a big play waiting to happen. But I just don't love the quarterback getting him the ball. So him, Devontae Smith, like I like Devontae Smith. I like AJ Brown, but give me Puka over those guys. And I'll spend my money elsewhere on the expensive running backs. And then as far as the Ravens go, don't love the wide receivers, but really like both tight ends. Like Andrews a lot and love Likely here. Likely one of my favorite plays on the slate, like right there with Puka. I think he's just way too cheap for his role here. Obviously, still no Zay Flowers. He's like a wide out in a tight end's body. So I like Likely a lot here. He's priority for me at 3,500.
All right. Specific question here from Safe and Super. He says playing Justice Hill, Andrew, Likely, and Bateman. Is that excessive? So two things you guys know is one, it's a short slate. There's going to be a ton of overlap. You don't even have to try really to do game stacks or get a wide receiver with your quarterback and a run back. And two, salaries. Those guys all have salaries. So I'm guessing you were trying to get in a Cooper Kupp, a Saquon Barkley. You said you're not playing Henry. So I'm guessing it's one of those two guys and maybe an AJ Brown and going with Allen at quarterback. That's the result you're going to get there. Now, I had a similar thing where I felt that was excessive because I came up on DK with that exact same grouping of players when I was building my single main lineup for the classic contest here. I felt it was going a little bit heavy there, but I kept coming back to making the same decision points where it's like, well, what am I going to do? Swap one of those guys out for a crappy Bills receiver? At least I know these guys are part of the pass catching core. So I don't think that's overkill. I think you're pushing your chips in with Baltimore, hoping they score every touchdown via the pass. But I don't think that's the worst way to go. I mean, Jackson had a career high 45 combined touchdowns this year. Henry had 16 on the ground, and then Jackson had his, but the rest were all through the air. So,
yeah, I mean, we saw it we've seen it a bunch where one team takes down a slate, even like on 11 game slate. We've seen Millie makers taken down. I remember the Bucks played Carolina like a month ago. You needed like $6 on your lineup to win that slate. So
yeah.
On a 2-game slate, people are going to do that, but it is a way to get a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all with any team here.
Another super chat here. Is Gainwell in play at all, particularly on FanDuel for tournaments? I think he is. Here's one thing. What if the visibility gets really bad because of the snow? Yes, Barkley's going to do a lot of the rushing, but he's probably not going to get every single rush. Gainwell could be in there. Gainwell is actually not a bad pass catcher. If we see anything, it's going to be swing passes to the running backs or going to the tight end in a poorer visibility game. We're reaching a little bit, but what happens if, God, we don't want this to happen. What happens if Barkley tweaks something in the first quarter? it's going to be Gainwell, right? So it's that contingent value that you're thinking of. If both players are healthy and we think it's a mostly run heavy game, I would say Gainwell probably is in the mix for 4 or 5 carries and 1 or 2 targets. That's not bad at all. He's not really live for a touchdown because the priority, if it's in close, it's going to be Goddard, it's going to be Hurts, it's going to be Barkley, right? It's not going to be Gainwell, but I think he's okay as a differentiation player, a discount dandy, and that brings into thoughts about Goddard on Showdown. He is someone that I actually was toying with in the flex on 2 of my 3 lineups. Well, him and Likely. So I'm playing 2 tight ends on 2 of my 3 site main lineups here. I like him in the Showdown lineup. I'm playing around with my Showdown lineup here, trying to figure out how I want to do it. And he's a name I keep trying to get into my lineup because I think he is well suited for a poorer weather game here. So that's my thoughts on him. Let's see, I think we crossed through.
What do you think about just in terms of general, like the Bills-Ravens game? Who do you think wins? Who are people on? I can't really get a good read on.
I think it's going to be the Bills. I think it's their year.
I mean, okay.
I mean, you got an amazing running defense for Baltimore, right? You've got the 2 guys who are going to be MVPs. They're almost mirror images of each other. I would probably lean towards Baltimore if the game were in Baltimore, right? I think it's that close. So I think the spread's like, is it even 3 at this point, or is it inside of 3?
It's way inside of 3. I mean, it's been flipping.
I thought it was 1.5.
It's been flipping who's the favorite. I don't think it's ever been to 3.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's truly a coin flip from that standpoint, but I think it's the Bills year. Let's see, 22 minutes here until a lock. Hitting on the defenses, you've got the Ravens, which again, we mentioned they're a good defense. They had a lot of sacks. I think they had the 3rd most in the league. They had the fair number of turnovers. Josh Allen, I believe, was sacked like 12 times this year, something like that, like hardly at all. And then you also have the turnovers. Josh Allen had 6 interceptions. His last 3 years, he averaged almost 13 per season. He had, I want to say 18 last year or something crazy. He only had 6 this year. It's pretty impressive. If we look at the Rams, they, replacing Aaron Darnold, they've got a couple of good rookies, but they're going against a team that likes to run the ball. And that makes it harder to find that fantasy goodness. Obviously, we like the Eagles. Sack potential is higher, so is turnover potential, but that could turn into a running game as well. And then that brings us full circle to the Bills. I actually think the Bills are the worst of all the defenses from a fantasy perspective, even though they are at home. I would still put the Rams ahead of them.
Yeah, I agree.
All righty. Will Puka rush for and receive a 50-plus yard touchdown today? We're going for a longest touchdown, I guess. I'm going to vote no. 50 yards is a long touchdown.
Probably not, but he's also not a guy I'd want to use in that contest anyways.
All right. So I'm trying to fill out my last spot here, and I'm going to run some. So my main lineup here, my final spot, would you go with Tutu Atwell, Ronnie Rivers, or Grant Calcaterra? That's none
of the above.
Well, I don't have many choices or any other running or tight end for the Rams that
I would tear it all up, EMAC, and start over.
I keep tearing it up, but if I can't put Puka in the captain spot there, my other iteration had all the running backs for Philly.
I guess Calcaterra.
That's where I'm leaning. We're going to go with Grant Calcaterra. So I put Puka in. I bounced all around. At one point, I had Kyron Williams in the captain spot. We're going with that. All right. Let me open up Discord here and see if we have any questions. We can answer some YouTube questions. We got 19 minutes to go here. If you guys want to take my money from me, username EMAC, just $1, but pride is priceless. That is the head-to-heads in the DK lobby for both Showdown Slates and the 2 Gamer. Let me find, why can't I find Discord? I should just type it in because I couldn't find my favorite button there. Who are you pinning your hopes and dreams on?
The sad thing right now is like a bunch of my highest ROI lineups are of hurt stacks, and I hate that. But I mean, can't argue with the Sims.
Yeah.
A guy that I like for cheap though, I'm not planting my flag on this guy, but I do like him for cheap is Tylan Wallace. Again, not really
Okay.
sure how Baltimore is gonna, make up for the loss of Flowers indefinitely. So I think he's certainly a guy that can step in. He's projected for 4 fantasy points, but projections in NFL are volatile. A guy catches 1 touchdown, obviously he's crushing that projection. So yeah, I just want to call him out. He's 3K on a slate where value is needed. So that's about it.
Yep. Charlie Oliver says no tight end talk. We meandered, so here's the real quick thing. I think the two tight ends for Baltimore are the two best options at this point. That is because Zay Flowers is going to be out. Last week they ran, I want to say 9 plays. This was from somebody else's research in an ESPN article, if I remember correctly. 9 plays where they weren't in, big or heavy or whatever they call the personnel, where they weren't in 11 personnel. That was because Isaiah Likely was on 80% of the snaps, Mark Andrews was on 61%, and Charlie Kolar was on around 30% of the snaps. They also played Patrick Ricard on 50 or so percent of the snaps. So they had their 2 receivers that led the team were Tyson Wallace with 53% of the snaps, 2 targets, Rashad Bateman, 49%, 2 targets. And then it was Nelson Aguilar, Steve Sims, Anthony Miller, and Devontae Walker. Blah, all the way down the road there. So we're seeing
It's
a
funny.
lot.
You want to know who my touchdown, my $5, like my 3 guys are?
Steve Sims.
Wallace, Sims, and Walker.
I don't have a problem with Wallace. Wallace does have that lightning in a bottle potential upside there, but the fact that he led the team and led barely, he had like 2 plays more than Bateman was kind of a surprise when I was digging through that. But that has me leaning towards the Baltimore tight ends. I think if I had to pick just one tight end today, it would be Goddard. He's probably number 1, but I'm playing for a hopeful touchdown there and leaning into weather. If that wasn't the case, if I felt Philly was going to go more downfield passing, then I would say it would be both Baltimore guys, whichever one's salary fits in best for you, or whichever one you have personal preference. Dalton Knox was as a cheap consideration, I think, because he is on the field a fair amount. And what happens with Kincaid is he's not really an inline tight end. He tends to be more of a giant receiver, more split out, more in the slot. So he's competing with Khalil Shakir for routes and in some cases for snaps. So I think Knox is okay. You got to be ready for 3 fantasy points, but I think he's live. And then Higbee is okay. I mean, God, he looked good. What was it last week? We were like, oh my God, no Higbee, no cash, and then he got hurt. And now he doesn't have an injury designation, and I thought he was basically dead after that last play. So, he's kind of in there, but that's a really crowded room in Los Angeles. So Goddard is the only one that really has the show to himself. And look, I just said I was playing Grant Calcaterra in my showdown lineup. So chaos yet again, chaos. Jahan Dotson, oi. Maybe if the game.
I think he's good for that $5 touchdown bet. I don't really want him in DFS though.
Didn't he have the first touchdown in the last game? Am I remembering that?
He
correctly?
did. Yes, he did.
Because football. All right. What else do we have here? I love it. Playing a lot of Likely and Andrews double tight end says the deal. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. Status of Ray Davis, unlikely to play. He was still in the non-contact jersey, which means he is at best in the second phase of the 4 or 5 phases of the concussion protocol. So unlikely to play tonight. All right, let's kicked off here. You sent me a head-to-head. I've got him out in the user lineups or in the DK lobbies, but I'll keep an eye out on that if I get a notification here. playing as much as I can while there are contests still. I know football's going to be running out soon. We all kind of got football fatigue a little bit after Thanksgiving, and then again around Christmas when we had all those holiday slates. But now it's like, but no, you're leaving us so quickly. You just got here, NFL. What's happening? We're 3 weeks away from the Super Bowl. Boy, boy. Puka, Kyron, or Cook? Well, that's easily Puka. How do you like Kyron or Cook?
They're very
Or who
similar
do
to
you
me.
like?
I don't have a strong opinion of either one of them. I think they're both good plays in their own right. If I had to choose, give me Kyron. But again, I like both.
This simulation, making sure I am doing the early slate, 5,000 team pool size. Pool size. Yeah, you're right. I cannot talk at all today, which is not good. Not good because I have to do day job stuff. And then I'm going to watch the game tonight. And then I'm going to bed early because we have a lot of meetings tomorrow. And I stayed up way too late watching that amazing game last night. That was such a good game. Let's see.
You have meetings on MLK Day?
We work on MLK Day.
Shame.
It is. It is. Once upon a time, we got a floating holiday for it, but now that we get flexible time off, they don't give you any time off. That's the biggest scam in the world, flexible time. Don't get me started. Got to get my beauty sleep. I know. I am gorgeous. Here's a 2v2. Derrick Henry and Coleman, or Hill and AJ Brown. I would lean towards the first one.
Oh my God, that's like exactly what I might be struggling with. You said, is it Henry and Coleman?
Henry and Coleman or Hill and Brown.
It's Henry and Coleman for me there.
Yeah. And the only reason is I'm leaning a little bit against I'm counting weather and no downfield passes to AJ Brown. Or very few.
Yeah. They're close, but give me the Henry side.
All right. Do you have a good read on AJ Brown today? Let's see what I did there.
I see what you did there. Not really. I mean, I've always been an AJ Brown fan. It's just a matter of can his quarterback get him the rock. So that's all it is for me. If he can, he's a big play waiting to happen.
Yeah. I had a good number here. So did you guys know that while Mac Hollins led the Buffalo Bills wide receivers in snaps, Keon Coleman was second, even though he missed 4 games. He was ahead of Shakir, who missed 2 games. But I found that to be interesting because I hadn't realized that. He's been out on the field a lot. He just hasn't gotten a ton of targets. He's second on the team, counting last week. Shakir had 100 targets through last week. Coleman 57, Mac Hollins 50. So it was, there's a big gap between those guys and Shakir. And then you've got Kincaid in that mix as well. But I was surprised that Coleman was up there because we didn't hear a ton about him. But he had so much training camp hype, and then he kind of didn't really do anything those first few weeks. He kind of became a pariah in the DFS world. Any idea why the Sims love the Rams defense so much? My guess is it's a differentiation leverage play.
They project as the second highest scoring defense and they're the cheapest. Yeah, they're going to be popular. Them and the Eagles will be by far the two most popular.
Excellent. Well, I'm doing just one. All my cash game main lineups, I ended up with the Eagles as my main defense on those 3 lineups. I'm making my showdown ones here for this game. I'm going to go over on both defenses. The kickers, I love kickers, and I think Elliott is great and can deal with the outdoors, but I am a little nervous about Cardi, the kicker.
Elliott struggled from distance too. So
well, it looked like he had the yips there for a while,
which
was not good. But he seems to have cleaned that up somewhat. These lineups all filtered out, so I can then just copy and paste in all the fantasy goodness here. Which contests are you focusing on today? Is the
I'm
big
just
million
playing.
dollar
I'm
one?
playing a couple in the in the $25. I'm playing one in the 444. So
Mm,
yeah.
444.
So I'm
Nice.
still deciding what I'm going to play there because I'm not sure. Like I said earlier, I think DraftKings is kind of teasing you to play Hurts at $1,000 cheaper. I'm not sure that many people are going to play him though. Like because I think everyone wants to just play the second game. So I do think there's some nice ownership leverage playing the first game. It's a lower total, but I don't think the game tonight is like the game we saw last night at all. So there might be enough of an ownership edge where I'm just going to go all in on the first game, see what happens. Mostly the Philly side.
Well, you know that means you're currently winning, so you're gonna look godlike.
Maybe not because if the game duds and I don't have the one guy that does anything, that's the worst. When you have all the early guys and you're like not even doing well.
Is there a realm where the Rams are high scoring, or the Rams game is high scoring?
Where the game is high scoring, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
really think the Rams themselves are going to score a ton here, but it's just me.
yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, there's these offenses when everything's clicking, they're so good. And it's like when you watch like the college football, right? When you watch the national title games or whatever, those defenses are usually pretty good. But then they're facing like the best of the best on offense. And when offenses are executing on them, they can't be stopped. So if everything's clicking, you get these wild shootouts, right? And we've seen plenty of games. God, even this year where they've dudded, where it's like, oh my God, this is going to be such a high scoring game. And then it ends up being, 17-14 or
It happens all
22,
the time in the
whatever.
NFL.
Yeah, it's one of those where we wish cast as much as we want, but games like what we saw last night are a rare occurrence. They're very special when they occur. How about 40%? Jake Elliott, not 400, 40% Goddard. The Rams defense coming in. I like where this is going. Knock Cardi down just a little bit. Get Puka up there. AJ Brown about with the field. Let's go against Stafford. Let's see. I did take the Stafford over on his rushing yards, which was fun, and I paired that with with Philly winning because the
What's that,
hope
like
is,
-2 yards?
yeah, you don't. No, I think it was like 4.5 or something. I forget what the exact number was, or 6.5. It wasn't a nothing one, but I didn't want the kneel downs, right? So if you're trying to avoid the kneel downs, right? So I lost my Mahomes over on rushing yards when he had the kneel downs at the end, right? And you're like, well, son of a gun. I had it all good till that point. But if you do that, you can put it on with the win with the other team, especially since they're so heavily favored, and you can get yourself a little bit better odds in that combination. So that was something I did. All right, let's download these lineups. We'll upload them. We are 6 minutes until lock. Let's see. Doesn't really seem to be much overlay out there, but DraftKings or FanDuel barely made any contests. The secret site, Yahoo, they have their main slate. Looks like it's going to be It's going to be reduced rake for their their $20 contest. It looks like a couple of their smaller contests will also be reduced rate. They have a $3 contest that definitely will. I'm going to go put my lineup in there just because I like reduced rake because that is the bane of my existence, especially when you're grinding out thousands and thousands of dollars when you find these little edges for, like, if you played $100,000 in entry fees and you were able to get even a 2% reduced rate, that's $2,000, right?
It's massive.
It's a lot of money. And when you consider a good winning ROI in like cash games / low stakes, people like me is probably like 3 to 5%. That's a huge chunk if you can get another portion on reduced rate, and all of a sudden that's how you build your bankroll. All right, back to the questions here. The Rams' highest owned defense on FanDuel scares Pierre. The Bills are the lowest owned. Is that good leverage? Yeah, if the Bills have two touchdowns. Let me get back to answer that a little bit better. Baltimore this year had 11 turnovers. That was the third fewest in the league. Buffalo had 32 takeaways, which was the third most in the league, trailing the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers by 1. The Ravens had the third fewest sacks in the league, while the Bills were right in the middle of the pack. Could weird shit happen? Yes. Like we saw with, I mean, who thought the Commanders defense was going to score yesterday, right? But that now you're seeing like, well, oh my God, there's all these checks against them. And, you know, we could see a late game where they get to Lamar Jackson 3 times in the final 5 minutes because Baltimore's trailing and he has to pass, and it's just a mess because his best receiver's hurt. Right. So there are ways each of these can get there. They just don't feel as good. Any Robinson love? No.
Nah, not really. Again, don't mind him for like the king of the end zone thing, but that's about it.
All right. So I ended up playing my Yahoo main lineup is Hurts, Hill, Barkley, Bateman, Samuel, Nakua, Dallas Goedert, Isaiah Likely, and the Eagles defense. I'm going to go put that in the contest that are showing that they are going to be reduced rake. I was more building that as a cash game, but when I see the opportunity like this, like they've got a $5 50-50 that's going to, it's a 200 person, it won't get above 155 people, right? These are the times you want to jump into stuff. They've got a quarter contest that is going to go off 30% empty. Right. Again, these are the times you want to jump in. And now I'm chasing overlay. But there we go. And that's why we call that the secret site. What do we have on FanDuel? If we go look at FanDuel, they do not really have any contests that are overlaying. They're on the smaller sizes of everything they have. They've got a $4 entry, $30,000 snap that will be reduced rake. I will play that one. My lineup on FanDuel is Jackson, Barkley, Cook, Samuel, Bateman, Nakua, Likely, Kincaid, and Eagles. Notice the 2 tight ends. So I did that one, and then I think DraftKings is probably full. And we are almost at lock, but let's quickly look over there because apparently people like playing on DraftKings. DraftKings does. Oh, they're going to go reduced rake in their $3. I'm just going to snap enter that. I went with Allen, Barkley, Kyron, Bateman, Coleman, Nakua, Goddard, Likely, and Eagles. So notice some overlap there, gamers. Notice some overlap, but that's why I only played the one lineup on each. But we are at lock. Matt, did you make your final decision on your?
I did.
What happened?
A lot happened. Let's just say that a lot happened. Yeah, I'm playing way more of the first game. I'm playing way more of the first game than I had originally planned, and again, I think it's just a byproduct of ownership and it, leverage, etc. It's a 2-game slate, so. While on paper and in my head, I certainly like the Buffalo-Baltimore game more. So does everyone. So you kind of got to get over that. And yeah, I'm playing more of the first game than I wanted, but we're going to see how ownership actually ended up.
All right. Well, I just jumped into 2 more DK contests. They are locked now, but the chain mover was going to go off with about 5% reduced rake, and there was a $4 one that was going to go off about the same. We shall see. Didn't exactly build those lineups for it, but hey, there's some correlation there, and it is a 2-game slate. If you're hitting the best player from each team, doesn't matter what else you do. So there we are. All right, everybody, thank you very much. If you want more insight on that showdown slate, I'll drop the link to the article into chat here. We also have an NBA today. We got the free NBA article up. There is no NBA show, but once NFL is wrapping up, we will get, or once they are done, we will get that onto the playlist as well. Here is the NFL Sunday Football article for you guys, and then I will put in the NBA article for you guys, and then we're going to get on out of here. Final thoughts, Matt, as we wind up our day.
No, great weekend of football capping off today, so good luck, everyone. That's all I got.
All right. Shout out to producer Jordan Klein. Shout out to Matt. You can find him on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. It looks like TikTok lives for another day. You can find me at EMAC DFS. And of course, it is Stokastic _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.